Hello and welcome to a new episode of Mole Thoughts. And today we want to talk about what is going on with Amazon Game Studios. Well, as you might have heard, Amazon Game Studios is, an Amazon studio which is working on video games. And they have been now doing this for 5 years, I would say, when they first started, or when they at least first announced that they're now working on video games. Maybe they have already worked on games much, much longer than that. But that was the first time where they announced it, and they announced 3 games at the time. Well, more or less, we heard about New World, we heard about Breakaway, and then they were working on another game I think they never really did go too much into. And since then, Amazon Game Studios has released a game called Crucible, has been working on New World, and Breakaway did go into closed beta and then was closed down, just like that. And people are like, okay, well, it happens, right? That's pretty normal in game development, that you're working on some video games didn't work out, and you decide to go with other games as well. Like right now, they're working also on a new Lord of the Rings MMO. But right now, Amazon Game Studios has a lot of issues. And before we jump into these particular issues I believe they have, let's look at the facts. So the first game Amazon Game Studios announced and did go into closed beta with was Breakaway. Breakaway was running for a few months in closed beta till nobody played the game anymore, and the game just didn't feel right, and so they did shut it down. Then they announced that finally the closed alpha of New World would start in 2018, and the closed alpha would run for about 9 months, which then ended, I think it was in April in 2019. And the team announced that they now take all the feedback they have heard and they will tinker a little bit more in the game, and then they will be back soon. Well, this soon, as they called it, was then in November 2019, where they resurfaced at the Game Awards, and they had a new cinematic trailer, and they also had some gameplay to show, and they basically said, hey, we completely rebooted the game and we tried something new. Then the closed alpha started again pretty close after that, and the game was actually planned to release in May 2020. Now in I think it was March when they announced that this is a date they cannot really hold up, and they want to take a little bit more time with the game to polish it and to make it feel right, and they're pushing it just back into the end of August. Now, as of right now, a few weeks ago, they announced that the New World is not coming out by the end of August. It's not coming out this year anymore. It will probably come out around May 2021. And that is a huge step backwards. That is not one of these examples where a developer just tries to take a little bit more time to polish a game, or maybe add like one or two gameplay elements here, and then they're just moving on from that. It's not like small things when you are postponing your game nearly a year. And it's keep in mind, they basically rebooted the game just a few months ago. So a lot of people are asking the question, what is going on, right? Like, what is happening that they have to push back the game so much? And maybe another game helps us to understand that a little bit more. Let's look at Crucible. Crucible is a game which came out, I think, 2 months ago. It was just a surprise announcement like, hey, in a month, we will release the game Crucible. And everyone was like, Crucible? Who's Crucible? And then Crucible got released, and now it's back in closed beta. Wait, what? Wait, it got no, it did go into early access, right? And then it got pushed back into closed beta, right? No, No, they officially released the game and then said, you know what? Barely anybody is playing it again. Like we don't have a player base. We don't know why people are leaving, and let's push it back into closed beta and let's see how it goes. And that's absolutely crazy. I think in my 20 years I've played video games, I have never heard of a game being released, like officially released, with no strings attached, and then getting pushed back into closed beta. I know that some people will say Final Fantasy XIV immediately, but I still believe that Final Fantasy XIV was a little bit different because A, the game was still open for everyone. Like, even when they developed the new version of Final Fantasy XIV, they were still actively developing and have the game open to everyone on the old branch. So comparing that with Final Fantasy XIV, in my opinion at least, doesn't really add up. It gets close. It's definitely not wrong. I'm not sitting here and be like, oh, that's wrong. You cannot really compare that. No. I'm just saying it is definitely closer to what Crucible did, but this is still like something very out of the norm. And we have absolutely no clue when the game will resurface again. And I think this shows the general problem Amazon Game Studio has. I have played all three games. I have played Breakaway when it did go into closed beta. I have played Crucible for quite a bit. And I was able to play New World here and there, especially the old version of the New World before they completely rebooted it. Well, not completely, but somewhat rebooted it. And all these games had the same problem. They were completely different games on the surface, but they all had the same problems. And the problem was not that the people who worked on this have no clue how to make video games. Amazon Game Studios hired some really big names and multiple engineers, game developers, game designers who absolutely know what they are doing. So it's not that they don't have the experience. It feels more like whoever calls the shots there making is making game decisions based on surveys, and I sometimes even have the feeling they're making game decisions based on what people buy on Amazon. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you know this moment when you are on Amazon and Amazon is telling you, by the way, people who bought this product also liked, and then you can see like all the products. That's how their games feel. It's this, okay, let's have a look at Crucible. So, people who like BRs also like MOBAs, also like PvE, PvP games, also like arena shooters, also like map control. It's like this list of what people like and what they play the most right now just smashed into one game, but there is no coherency there. Like the game elements do not add up. They all exist in the game, but they don't really work together. Like Crucible again is a wonderful example of this, where you have this, yeah, there's PvP, but there's also PvE, and PvE and PvP are completely different things which don't really work together. Yes, sure, you can get buffs from the PvE mode to help you in the PvP mode, so you want to play PvE, but it feels more like a, hey, get these buffs, they help you. But there is no real connection to the PvP world. Like, monsters are not interfering, they are not like, they are not really a danger to your team. It's not really like you have to make the decision. Like, when you look at this idea to have PvP, PvE in a game, then normally what games are doing is they are putting you in front of the decision. What do you want to do? Do you want to go for the PvE to get maybe an edge later on? Or do you want to do the PvP part where you have to capture things, where you have to fight other players and maybe get an edge throughout that? In Crucible, that's not the case. PvE is always the easiest and best option, and PvP is a high risk, no reward option. And it's like, Yeah, so I don't I don't do the PvP now. I'm just doing my PvE over here. And I had the feeling Breakaway had like a similar problem, but not with PvE, PvP because PvE wasn't really a thing. But Breakaway was more like a Rocket League meets MOBA meets Fortnite building, and all these three aspects didn't really work together. Like the Rocket League aspect was solid because, well, it's Rocket League, right? Like Rocket League is a solid game. And but it feels like that the heroes didn't really fit in there, and that the buildings you could build were just in the way. They didn't feel like they belong in there. They didn't really do anything besides of, look at that. We have a fun little gameplay features where you can build buildings in Rocket League game. It's like, yeah, but that that doesn't fit there. Like, sure, you can just take certain gameplay elements and put them into a video game, but if they don't make sense to be there, if they don't feel like they belong there, and they don't interact with the other gameplay elements, then that gameplay element is just in the way. And the Secret World has, again, a similar problem. It's a PvE game with is built on an MMO with PvE world domination aspects, but also most importantly, there's survival aspects in this game. Especially like the first Irritation was more like a survival game. And it's like, why is that there? Like, you might say, have you played Conan Exiles? Have you played Ark? No. That you cannot compare that because that's not what they did. What they did is they took basically World of Warcraft and put survival elements on top of it. And you might first think that is a fun idea till you realize how obnoxious that is, and till you realize how that is basically in the way of all the other MMO aspects. Or even like EverQuest. Think about EverQuest, and they're putting on top of EverQuest, putting survival mechanics. It's like, dude, EverQuest is like already tough enough, right? There's a lot of things going on. You don't need survival mechanics on top of that. And that's how the new world always felt. It's this somebody was looking at the gaming list, at the top played games right now, and they were like, MMOs, survival, PvP, crafting, and heroes. Yeah, let's make a game out of that. Crucible, the same thing. Okay, class based shooter, MOBA, BR, and something with monsters. And it totally doesn't work together. And I can only imagine that upper management who makes the calls in the end has not really anything to do with video games. Like, I have the feeling Amazon Game Studios and Amazon in particular is into this whole gaming thing, not because they really believe they want to make video games, but they see it as an income source. They see it as a money source. But video games have showed over the decades, over and over and over again, if the team who is at the work of these games, who is at the helm of these games, is not passionate and doesn't get like a certain level of freedom, then these games turn to be out pretty shallow in the end. And you might now say, but Mo, every publisher is making this for money. Yeah, yeah, you are absolutely right. But the teams they are working with, the developer teams, have a lot of freedom and can still choose most of their own directions. Sure, there is some interference with management and investors and whatnot. I know that. But for most of the time, even at EA Studios, they have a lot of freedom in comparison to what Amazon does right now. On Amazon's side, it looks very much like there are some people in charge who have no clue about video games, but they're good at management. They're looking at all the data, all the surveys, and they're just like, do this, do that, do this, and make a video game and make us money. And it's like, yeah, that's not how a video game industry works at all. So I think truly that Amazon has a management problem, and that they have to give their teams a lot more freedom on what they want to do and what they want to create, and not just following a hit list, following like a survey. Like, it might be true that 70% of all the gamers out there love VR games and everyone is playing VR games, but that doesn't necessarily mean they want another VR game. Like, they have already a lot of VR games. It's basically it's fascinating to see, but the gaming industry, and this is the last thing I will say on this, is the gaming industry is repeating the mistakes they have made over decades. It's the same thing when World of Warcraft became the thing, right? Like, World of Warcraft was the big MMO which just took over everything. And every company out there was like, yeah, everyone loves MMOs now. Everyone is playing World of Warcraft. That means they definitely want another MMO in their life, no matter how bad it is, but they just want that. And it turned out, no, they didn't. They had their MMO, and the only thing they really wanted is more content for the MMO they are already playing. Unfortunately, Blizzard hasn't always delivered on that, but that's a different topic. But they were not really looking for a replacement. They were not really looking for an addition to what they already do. And I have the feeling this is what Amazon is doing right now. They're looking at the games which are successful, and they decide, man, so many people want to play this. We have to make one too, and then people will just come. And that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Simple as that. And Amazon has to figure that out. If they don't figure that out, they might be in trouble soon. Like, Amazon might at some point pull the plug because they believe that the outcome is not good enough, and the money they can make back from gaming is not justifying the cost. So they have to be very careful with this, and we'll see how it goes. With that said, thank you so much for watching. My name is Chaosmol. You can always catch me at twitch.tv/Chaosmol. I'm a partnered streamer over there, and we are always streaming from Monday to Friday, starting at 8 a.m. ET, which is 1 p.m. GMT and 2 p.m. Central European Time. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I see you next time.